Obviously, I'm Craig. I suppose with the arts, it started a while ago with bands. I used to play in bands back in secondary school, teenage days. Then there was a big gap when I started going to work and uni and whatnot. So now it's mainly I'm into photography. Gig photography is the main thing. I used to do a lot of street, and I've done a few sort of events where I've just turned up with me camera because the wife's a runner. So I've done a lot of marathons. Other than that, it's just purely gig. But I also do gig reviews. I'll do CD, album reviews and track reviews, video reviews, and that for a website. So that's my main involvement with the art side of things.
Right. So what website is that?
Backseat Mafia.
Backseat Mafia.
It's like a music blog, music review site. So just for free, it was just a guy in Sheffield that set it up. And I just got it through Instagram. He was asking for people to write for him, so I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I've been doing that for about a year and a half now. It's just reviewing tracks that bands have released and that, and doing interviews and things like that. It's all for free. It's not like a paid job, unfortunately. But yeah, so I've been doing that for now a good while. I quite enjoy that. So with my job, I don't only work like 2 weeks at a time. So I work offshore, so I'm actually home for 3 weeks at a time. So I've got plenty of time to do these things, really. That's probably the main reason why I do them. I don't think I'd do them if I had a proper job. If I actually did a 9-to-5 job, I don't think I'd do them. But
yeah, I think it's fairly common in the arts. It's as we've seen with so many of us missing out on any of the government support during lockdown. It's like you're lucky if you can be a full-time artist and make a living entirely out of that. I think a lot of people that I've interviewed have, it's ridiculous to call it your proper job. I guess I've always thought of things in those terms, just because I guess I've never been funded before. So
yeah,
for me, it's been quite a reverse that during lockdown I've become much more of a professional artist than I was. But but yeah, I guess there is this idea that the arts is something that you do as a hobby in your free time, but I think it's a lot more than that. And just be interested to know about personally why you've always been engaged, first in music, now through photography and writing, why you've always been engaged in the arts and what you've got out of that.
I think, to be honest with you, I think it's just been a natural progression almost. From like being a little kid, I always remember my mum with her tapes and vinyls and whatnot, and just being intrigued by this sound and music, and it kind of carried on from there. And I got into sort of the harder rock. So I was into bands like Queen and Guns N' Roses were my first sort of big ones. And from there, I was like, right, I've got to play guitar. I've got to do it. And it carried on there. And then you meet like-minded people, especially at school. And I started teaching a bit of guitar as well. So I was meeting people and we're talking, and bands start up and you get into that scene. And I think you just end up going that way. There was never any of the hobbies that really grabbed me. I was never into football or any sort of usual people that do in a weekend. So it was always just music. And then when you sort of grow up and get a life, if you like, and people start to move away from uni and you get a job and you run out of time to do things, the guitar kind of fell away with the bands. And then I just started taking photos on my phone at nights out and things like that. And I was quite enjoying it. And I ended up just getting a camera for Christmas from the wife, and that was it. And me and the wife quite doing the festivals. Stockton Calling was our big one we used to do, and I just thought, bugger it, I'm going to take my camera, and that was it. And the first gig was a band called Black Sheep, Frederick Dickens. They played at the Westgarth, and that was the first. And as soon as I started shooting, that was it. I was hooked into it big time, and it's just been a bit of therapy, I suppose. I know a lot of people do say that, don't they, really, when it comes to arts. But it's just been like, I've had my camera with me. We used to go for walks. I'll take my camera with me, and with work on courses, if I'm middle of Aberdeen, middle of Norwich, whatever, I'd have my camera with me and I'd go for a walk and I'd just take pictures, and that was it, really. And it was just something to pass the time. I found it quite therapeutic.
Absolutely. So is it just just because you enjoy it, do you put up any of these photos anywhere? Have you got an archive?
No, Instagram. Instagram's about all I really use. I've tried to look at other things. I've got a Flickr that I never really bothered with. I try to do Facebook, but I don't really do a lot of social media. I have them, but I don't like to engage with them. Instagram is my main one, so I post them on there. I've done the Backseat Mafia, so I've put gig shots up on there to go with like reviews and such. So I've used it on that. I created a website, but again, that's kind of fallen by the wayside in a way. And it's basically just to post the pictures up, but it's literally for that. I don't do it for the money. I have no ambitions with it. I don't want to be professional or do this thing any more than just turn up with my camera and shoot. So that's about it, really. I'm quite lucky in a way that I have a job that lets me do that. I've got all the time in the world that I can go out and shoot, and then I've got all the time in the world when I'm at work on a night time to do my editing and sort everything out. And that's it. That's the way I've been going to do, and hopefully that's what I'm going to carry on doing. Really, we shall see.
Brilliant. So, I always ask people how lockdowns affected them. Did you being mainly gig photography? I think you said. Did you say that you're thinking of moving into, was it landscapes or portraits rather than?
Well, I used to do a bit of street. That's where I kind of started, simply because I used to just wander around the streets. But I think I got that bored of taking pictures of padlocks and drain covers and all the usual cliches that we always start out when the photography often starts out with them sort of shots. So I've kind of give up on that in a way. I got a bit bored, and I've found that I really like taking pictures of people, but I don't like taking pictures of like staged, if you know what I mean, like the normal sort of portraits and that. I like to take pictures at gigs. I like pictures of people at events, and that's kind of where my love of photography comes from. And it's more of doing that than wanting to do anything else with the photography wise. So landscape bores me, and it's not just taking pictures for picture's sake. It's doing something like that, going to a gig and capturing a gig rather than just taking a camera out and just taking random pictures like I used to when I first started. So like when lockdown came around and all the gigs stopped and that, my work never stopped. So a lot of it didn't really change for me. The wife being pregnant, we weren't really going anywhere anyway. So we kind of didn't really change a great deal. We just stopped seeing people. And I kind of stopped taking any pictures for a good 6 months, really. But I quite enjoyed it, really. I quite enjoyed the break. I quite enjoyed the forced sort of isolation, if you like, and the slow pace of life. And I just got into doing more reviewing and writing for the website. And that would be my main sort of hobby at the moment. But I've just started picking up the camera again to start going out. And I actually did a shoot with the wife. She wanted a maternity shot. And it was literally, I think it was the day before she actually gave birth. We had sent the little one off to school, and then we just removed all the furniture, got her by the window and just started taking some pictures. So I kind of ignited the passion a bit more. So I hope to do a bit more of that. And I've got the little one now, so hopefully going to set a little shoot up for him and have a look at doing things like that. Brilliant. See if I can get back into it that way. But really, I'm just waiting for them gigs to start up.
I know. We were getting there, weren't we? We were so close. My calendar is just a massacre for this year. It's like everything crossed out. It was the first year, like our kids are now old enough. We've got stuff lined up, festivals and gigs throughout the whole year. And I'd booked nights for my club, my monthly club, all the way up until this month. And it's been really hard. I think gigs have been the main thing that's really, really suffered. I think, quite a bit of theatre and certainly poetry is really rocking online, but you can't really, really experience the atmosphere of a gig through Zoom.
Yeah. I've seen a few. I've done a few for the website. I've seen a few gigs that have streamed online and that. And you lose your interest, really. Like a lot of things for gigs is that I get bored quite easy with a lot of them, unless I'm truly into the artist. Unless they're doing something different or spectacular, I will switch off. And the camera keeps me interested, if you like. There's not many people. There's not many even big bands that I really would like to go and see, because you end up with a big crowd where you stood in the middle and you kind of lose it, if you know what I mean. Where these little sort of smaller gigs and that, are a bit better, but you struggle to get the decent artists, if you know what I mean. And I kind of lose interest a lot. So the photography side of things does kind of keep me into going to gigs as well.
Yeah. So what you said you've been covered Stockton Calling. You've done a gig at the West Garth. Are there other local venues where you've been to see bands and photograph them?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Georgian Theatre, obviously. I quite like that place. Sticky Fingers, I did one of those over in Middlesbrough. See the West Garth. Bandcamp over in Middlesbrough. I've done a couple there. I did Hartlepool when they did their festival, Hartlepool Live. I shot for the council for there. I was one of their photographers for that gig. That was quite good. I quite enjoyed that one. But yeah, it's mainly been sort of the Georgian Theatre. It's been my main sort of haunt. I've only really been doing it for a couple of years, but only really properly looking into doing gigs for the last year. Well, sort of say last year, like 2019, should I say? Obviously, this year's been a washout. So it was only really sort of maybe a year's worth that I've actually been hitting these gigs, and we've been away. I missed quite a lot. And I only just started with the website. I've now started up to be like the live editor for them to get into the bigger gigs to shoot. But obviously that came just as COVID came. So that's still on the back burner at the moment.
So you managed to blag yourself into gigs well enough on as a photographer?
Yeah. I don't like to do it, to be honest with you. I like to pay because half the time when you're paying these things, it's a tenner if that, you know. And I don't. I'm quite sort of comfortable with just paying that. I got into the Gathering Sounds Festival when they did that in Stockton. I got a pass for that. But most of the gigs, I used to often send a message to the artist saying, you know, is it all right to come shoot and that, and I'll turn up, but I'll pay on the door. Just, it's only right, you know. They need the money just as much. So
yeah, respect you for that. Absolutely, I pay my way whenever I can because it's you know that's what it's those smaller venues that we're so dependent upon, particularly like for the music scene. Like if those little venues drop out, then the whole scene bottoms out because that's where people learn their craft. That's you know you get people into the bigger gigs by them.
I prefer them. I prefer going these little venues than go and see, you know, a big act at Wembley Stadium, to be honest with you. I'd rather go to the Georgian Theatre and, you know, see bands like, you know, Pellethead. I got to see Pellethead. I knew about Pellethead from years ago when I was playing in a band at Studio 64, which I don't think's around anymore, but the little rehearsal studios are there. We used to go down and there was Pellethead posters and graffiti on the wall, and I finally got to see them at the Georgian Theatre after God knows 10, 15 years of knowing about them, and I enjoyed that far better than seeing any sort of big band really. These little venues are special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The only gig I've managed to get to was Chaz Thomas played down at Disgraceland, and it was so good, and it was just such a brilliant atmosphere. Obviously, there was hardly any of us there, but he got to the end of his set, and we were just like, "No, mate, start again from the top."
Yeah, well, that's isn't it? It's nicer there. You get that connection there rather than just, you know, it's a bit stale sometimes, I think. With bigger acts, but yeah, with them lot, and you get to speak to them and whatnot. It makes it a lot more than it's more than just the music then.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, all I can say is let's hope that we're out and about next year. I think, you know, if this vaccine works, if enough people take it, you know, it's going to be an absolutely massive summer in it. I mean,
well, hopefully, yeah.
All get out there and get to the festies, get to the gigs. I think it's, you know, people actually really, really appreciate the arts a bit more now that they've been deprived of that kind of live experience.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, the Globe opening. Just going to see what that's like. It's a hell of a hyper really over it. The time they've been refurbishing it and all that, and from its heydays, hopefully that will. And I've seen a few of the acts that have been scheduled for next year. So there's quite a few that I fancy. Hopefully, blagging my way in, shall we say? Getting some shots and gig reviews done for that. And I quite like staying local, especially for the website. I've picked up a few local bands and local artists just to sort of keep that northeast scene alive, if you like. There's too much of this down south and Newcastle Places like that take all of it, and you know, us little Stockton and Middlesbrough, we kind of lose out a bit. So
yeah, I've got a, you know, I've been on this mission for quite some time now, since last April, just dedicating myself completely to the Arts on Teesside between last April and the 23rd of April 2023, and that's just going to be my entire focus, and it's an absolute joy. And yeah, I really think we've got something unique going here, that just excites me in a way that I'm involved in all kinds of things, and I absolutely love, you know, like the different crews that I'm involved with, like Sheffield, London, you know, Wales, like all over. But I think it is extra special here, and I've got, you know, hopefully some kind of coups for the local area coming up next year. That it's just a pleasure to be able to bring here, because I think we've got enough here going on that you don't need to bring anyone from the outside, but it's kind of that back and forth. It's like raising the awareness of Teesside by bringing people here. Not
yeah,
so much so that we can see how brilliant they are, but so that they can see really what's going on here.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's it's good. And I was quite impressed with, like I say, the Globe, some of their people that they've got signed up to come play so far. And I really enjoyed that Stockton weekend. I don't know if you ever went to that. I don't know. It's a shame they stopped it because they had some great acts. You know, bands you'd never ever see. Dexys were playing there. James played there. Happy Mondays.
Yeah,
You know,
it was unbelievable. I mean, that week is like Primal Scream and Dexys in the same weekend, wasn't it? And
yeah,
yeah, absolutely tremendous. And as it happens, the performer that was on stage with Dexys, Madeline Highland,
yeah.
she's now a really good friend of mine.
Oh, right.
Pilgrimage with her, and it was hilarious because I'm a bit of a playwright, and when I saw them I thought, God, if there was anyone ever going to be my lead character, I'd love it to be her. And then just bizarrely she got in touch with me, and so that plan's still on the cards.
Oh,
That happens one day. Let's hope all of this stuff happens. In the meantime, it seems like generally we're keeping ourselves busy. We're still keeping up in spirit, and well, I just look forward to hopefully sometime in the near future being able to get down the front, sweaty, messy, and covered in beer. That would be terrific.
yeah, but it's to be honest with you, one thing I'm looking forward to as well is actually meeting. There's a lot of people I follow on Instagram, the local photographers. There's a lot of the artists and that I've never actually met yet. You know, we've talked many a time and on over social media, but it'd be nice to actually go and meet these. You know, meet people and put them sort of the faces to the names or to the Instagram names. You say, yeah. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Probably
Yeah.
more so than the actual gigs themselves. I have to tell.
And I am planning an absolutely massive fuck off party down the Orcs at the end of this with people that I've interviewed. So yeah, hold tight, and hopefully we'll all get to come and shake a leg together.
Yeah.
It's been lovely talking to you, and you know, good luck with the juggling the baby and the art and the job. And yeah, as I say, hope to see you out and about someday. Little pip.